welcome to the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast. This is Dianne, your lactation consultant.
And I'm Abby, and I'm Abby, the Badass Breastfeeder.
Not just some random Abby.
Just Abby. Just Abby. Abby to most people. Today's episode, let's talk about that. It's brought to you by Imani and breastpumps.com. They help mothers everywhere with the right tools. Imani recently released the Imani i1 Dual Breast Pump. And today's episode is also brought to you by Original Sprout. Their hair and body baby wash is made with gentle moisturizing ingredients. And we'll hear more from our sponsors later, but you can head to badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com and check out our sponsor page. Check there if you need anything and see if you can give any of them your business because they make this podcast possible. And while you're there, you can also enter your email address. And we will send our episodes straight to your inbox every week. And you can also check out our shop page at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com, where we have all of our merch. We have very cool stuff. We have t-shirts, and it's not just t-shirts because we also have
kids' mugs and water bottles and
water bottles, and we have all the different, like, all of our little favorite sayings on there, like my boobs, my business, and breastfeeding without the bullshit. And sorry if anybody, I always try to like whisper curse words, like as if your child is in the room. And that's my baby's lunch you're staring at. And you can get all these cool sayings. And my favorite, which we all know my favorite, is the review. Somewhat informational and somewhat horribly offensive. So drinkware, we have stickers too. We have all of that. So check that out when you're there. I think you'll enjoy it. And now Dianne has our review of the week.
Yes. I do want to mention as well, I have a colleague that just put out a really great book about breastfeeding, and it's called This Book Sucks, Feeding Your Baby Shouldn't. It has got great information in here. It's really easy to read. It's super informational, gives you suggestions of stuff, just really, really great, easy read, and gives you really good info. So again, it's called This Book Sucks, Feeding Your Baby Shouldn't. And you can find it on Amazon. I'm going to put the link in the show notes too. But this review comes to us from iTunes. So thank you so much for putting it on iTunes. And, of course, you can always send us an email too at badassbreastfeedingpodcast@gmail.com. We do get those, of course, as well. And if you can put them on iTunes, it's super helpful. But this one did come off iTunes. Empower yourself with info. I found this podcast several weeks postpartum. As a new mom struggling with cluster feeding and a highly sensitive newborn, it was a godsend for my mental health. Few people around me could give me any guidance or information about what was normal. At one point, my pediatrician even suggested I cut dairy to lessen my baby's fussiness. I'm so glad I had this podcast to reassure me that my baby was just being a baby. We are now 8 months into our nursing journey, and I look forward to a new episode each week. It's a lot of pressure, a new episode each week to entertain you with. But hopefully she is, well, it sounds like this little team of mother baby are doing really good and making it through. And we know those early days can be really tough. So thank you so much for listening to us. And we're glad that we, kind of helped you through that. And I hope you continue to listen. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Appreciate it. Yeah. And today's episode, if you're tuning in, you already know that we're going to be talking about like environmental toxins and like toxins overall and stuff like that. And this actually came from a question that a listener, I was going to say a reader, a listener emailed a question to me about like different like caffeine and environmental toxins and alcohol and things like that. And I know we talk a lot about, or we have in the past talked a lot about caffeine and alcohol, but we never have talked really about toxins, I don't think.
No, we haven't.
And what happens there. I know sometimes people, I think there is a bigger push nowadays for people to be really concerned about it. I never really was all that concerned about it. I don't know why.
I know. I think some people just don't think about it. Because you don't think about all of the toxins that you're exposed to throughout the day. And then if you do, and somebody points it out to you like this episode, and it might be like, oh my God, I never thought about that. And like, I do think that a lot of this is, at least the push for it, can come at some sort of, from unethical places. Like, ways to push formula, ways to push, cleanses or, certain products, saying like, oh, did you ever think about, like with like laundry detergent? Have you ever thought about how disgusting your bed sheets are? Oh my God, you must use this detergent. And, we've talked about that before too, about like this kind of, it's marketing.
Yeah.
It's marketing to get you to buy, certain things. And there's a lot of information. Marketing is so powerful that it is like, entire cultural norms are created from these things. And so, I don't know. The thing about this episode too is that Diane and I have not talked about it.
Yeah,
with each other. We have not talked about it with each other. And I know Diane has some science to talk about, and I have some opinions to talk about. And that sums up the Badass Breastfeeding Podcast.
Yeah. And I can kind of tell you that, like I said, I don't really think about this stuff. I think when my kids were coming up, like it wasn't really like nobody was like, oh my God. I remember the first time I heard anything about this. And that was like, I think I was in just like I want to say a shoe store, maybe like just some random place. And I don't know, it's like somebody asked me maybe what I do. And I said what I did. And this girl that I didn't know, she might've even worked there or whatever, was like, oh, my doctor told me that, there's so many toxins and pollutions in the environment now that formula feeding is actually better than breastfeeding. And this was like probably 15 years ago that this happened. And I was like, what? Like, I'd never heard that before. But of course, then I'm like, is that true? But there's no way, like the more stuff that I looked at, and I want to say too, that like when I was doing the research on this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to really, I hope it doesn't trigger anybody that really has a lot of anxiety over this kind of stuff, because that's the last thing I want for anybody is for you to leave this episode going, oh my God, my baby's full of toxins, because like, I don't want you to think that, because that's not the case. But what I did learn was that, they're basically all around us. And I think that, that's another thing that I don't really think too much about. And plus I was in the Army. I'm full of God knows what, I have no idea what they did to me. Like I have no idea. Like they shoot you full of stuff and they give you all sorts of stuff. And you're in these environments and with generators and, breathing all this horrible diesel fuel all the time. And like, there's just who knows, but, there are, they're all around you.
You know what? You're here and your kids are fine.
I'm here. Right. Like that's kind of like, I'm like, okay, I'm here. But the email that listener sent me was like, what about like, do I need to stay away from like cleaning products? Is this going to be a problem? And when I started to look into it a little bit more, it's like, okay, it's not even like cleaning, like a lot of the toxins that we get are just from our diet. So there's really like, there is no completely erasing toxins out of your life. Like not even just like the stuff, like you walk out the door and you're breathing them in. Like it's not something that you can just get away from.
And you don't need to. You do not need to buy some crazy product or go on some crazy diet or do something crazy. This is your life. This is how we live. And your body, is also designed to flush a lot of these toxins as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying toxins are great and go out and breathe in the car exhaust, in your garage and die. Like, no, this is our environment. And for me, the bottom line is formula is not less harmful.
Yeah.
That is the bottom line for all of this for me, is that this is all leads to like, maybe I shouldn't breastfeed, and absolutely not.
Right.
That is not
that is
the
bottom
case.
line. Yeah, that is absolutely the bottom line. And the research studies that I found, and I have two that I actually have pulled up that I wanted to talk about, but there's definitely a lot of research around this. One of them that I was reading that I really liked is a little bit older. It's like from 2008, I think it is. And like I said, I'll link both of these because they're both available. You know, sometimes you pull up research studies and you can't actually read them.
Right.
But these are both available to read, and they're very interesting. And they're one's from 2022 or 2021 or 2022, and the other one is like from 2008. And basically both of them are like bottom line of like, yeah, breastfeeding still, regardless of toxins, being presented to your baby through your breast milk, it is still preferable way for you to feed your baby.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like around the board, like everybody, like CDC, WHO, American Academy of Pediatrics, everybody agrees that is still, regardless of contaminants, regardless of toxins, breastfeeding is still the better option when it comes to feeding your child. And that is for a lot of cool reasons, actually. Not just, of course, we always talk about how like breastfeeding's better than, it's not just food, but these articles really go into the science behind how breast milk actually can reverse some of the damage that chemicals can do.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a really powerful thing. And when you breastfeed your baby, it is so important for them to have that breast milk. Like it is just, and they say, I'll have to see if I can find it maybe when we're on the break, something that one of them says about why breastfeeding is the preferred method to feed your baby anyway. So like that's why this is still, plays this out. But the different research that they do on this, like you have different contaminants in different parts of the world, and people's bodies also, either hold them in longer or not, depending on like body shape, body size, how old you are. Obviously, the older you are, the more contaminants that are in your system because you've been on the planet longer. Like there's a lot of variables. People that eat red meat have more toxins than vegetarians do. People that have like very high, diets that are very high in like seafood have more contaminants. There's just a really variable baseline here. Like it's just all over the place. And there's really no way to be like, oh yeah, if you stop using that chemical to clean your kitchen countertop with, you're going to wipe out all the toxins. You're not going to have to worry about it. And it's like, they're just there. They're just there. It's just,
that's the thing that people, and again, I do think that it's, a way to scare people, a way to get people to, I don't know, buy formula or buy these things, or it's, there is this whole push now of like, use this because it's free of toxins, and use this and buy this because it's better. And of course, it's always like $10 more expensive because it has less shit in it. And I'm like, I'm going to figure that out. Right. And, there has become, because I will always have the framework of capitalism, there has become a whole industry, a whole green industry of capitalism to make money off of, our fear of toxins, our fear of things not being natural, organic, or whatever. And, of course, in some ways, I'm not an expert in this or anything, but of course, in some ways, it's true. We want to have, a more sustainable way of life, but also like, on the other hand, there is much of this that the goal is profit. It is a capitalist venture for much of this. And to say that you can do this and do that and buy this or buy that, and then you'll have less toxins in your body, that's not true. Mm-mm. It's not true, because here we are on this planet. This is where we are, and this is how we live. And you can't just like live in a bubble and like, then you're safe to breastfeed. That is not how this works. And for all of the things that we are living through, like we were talking about before, breast milk is protection.
Right.
We talk about that with smoking. Smoking, how of course, cut down if you can. If you can't, it's still preferable for you to breastfeed. We have the research to show this. Breast milk is still the best option for your baby, even if you're a smoker. And breast milk can help protect your baby against, the smoke that they're exposed to from your smoking.
Yeah, I was going to say smoking it's a big thing too. And I mean, even when, when you can quit smoking, sometimes your family members don't, and you're just around it. And that's kind of hard. I mean, because toxins stay in your system, your baby's exposed in utero too. So, and I think we don't really, I don't know, for some reason, what happens when you're breastfeeding tends to overshadow whatever happens in utero. We talk about that all the time.
Even though it's far more
there's definitely more exposure in utero, but when parents are breastfeeding, they're like, oh my gosh, is this okay? And it's like, well, the same thing happened in utero. So what's the difference? It says here, this is funny. In 1951, DDT became the first environmental pollutant found in human milk. And if you don't know what DDT is, it's like a, what am I trying to say? Like a pollutant, that people put on to keep, bugs away from their pesticide. That's it. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell is the freaking word? I don't even know. But they're saying that, that it really, regardless of all the studies that have done, breastfeeding is still the best way to feed your baby, and that there is going to be contaminants in formula. And then you're not going to get those protective factors from the formula itself. So thinking that I was exposed to something, or, I work in this factory where I'm being exposed daily, so I don't want to breastfeed my baby because they're going to be exposed to that. Your baby's going to get protective factors. And I tell people that too with smoking. If people can't don't quit smoking or whatever, it's your baby's still going to get protective factors from breast milk, regardless if you're smoking around it. Because if you're smoking around your baby, or if your baby's exposed to that smoke, there's definitely going to be some respiratory impact on them, because it is damaging to respiratory. We know that, damaging to their little infant lungs and respiratory. But if you breastfeed, that's going to help protect some of that.
Right. Right. And with smoking, there are some things that you can do. You can smoke outside, you can wash your hands, you can, have a smoking jacket that you wear and then take off, around your baby, and, just to minimize risk. But our daily life of toxins, there's nothing you can do about it. And freaking out about it, we're talking about it, but we're also talking about how we don't talk about it, and how we don't talk about it is also okay. It's okay that nobody knew this, because but it does come up, and I have heard it, many times over the years of toxins. Oh my God. And I bet, mark my words, at some point there will be some sort of test kit created. That you can dip a freaking test thing into your milk, and it'll tell you, if you have, dangerous levels of toxin in your breast milk. Yeah. But then guess what?
Or mercury or something. Yeah.
Guess what? That same company will send you some pills or whatever that'll cleanse your body of whatever. And, it's just stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
It is really so. I just found, there's one thing here that says, this is pretty interesting. The neurodevelopmental benefits of human milk tend to override the potential adverse effects of neurotoxicants. There is much evidence that breastfeeding plays a role in attenuating and reversing exposure to neurotoxic substrates, including lead and mercury. Breastfeeding may also indirectly affect the metabolism of mercury in exposed infants by increasing elimination of the toxic metal. So you're not going to get that with formula. And these are the reasons why we say continue to breastfeed, because that is going to be more beneficial for your baby than, because you can't remove all of this stuff from you. It's just there. And like you said, different places have different levels of things. You're going to find different levels in different parts of the world of certain things, exposures and whatnot. But it's just everywhere. And they say it's they find it on mountaintops, at the poles, at, places where there are very few people. You still have a lot of environmental toxins in the area. But we should probably take a break, huh?
Yeah, we should. And we'll be back shortly with more things that we'll talk about that you shouldn't worry about. Today's episode is brought to you by Original Sprout. Original Sprout carries safe, effective, and pediatrician-tested shampoos, conditioners, and styling body care products that are produced and packaged right here in the U.S., California to be exact. The Original Sprout Hair and Body Baby Wash is made with gentle, moisturizing ingredients such as organic calendula and refreshing rosemary extract. Rosemary helps stimulate scalp circulation and calm cradle cap and eczema. This hair and body baby wash is ideal for babies, children, and adults alike, and I actually use this in my house. All of Original Sprout's products are paraben and phthalate-free, vegan, and cruelty-free. Their proprietary formulas contain nourishing extracts from fruits, vegetables, and flowers that the whole family can enjoy. They are not just for babies anymore. Check out the entire line at originalsprout.com. That's originalsprout.com. And use code BADASS for 25% off of your purchase. And today's episode is also brought to you by Imani and breastpumps.com. Helping parents everywhere with the right tools, Imani recently released the Imani i1 dual breast pump, featuring the quietest motor on the market. Experience optimal pumping with hospital strength output, as well as a never-before-seen boost mode. Whether pumping from one breast or both, this smart system maintains a constant pumping pressure. Its two main cycles, massage and express, include multiple vacuums on each cycle. Portable, efficient, and hands-free. Find out why Imani USA products are trusted by over 46 million parents around the world throughout their breastfeeding journey. For more information, visit Imani USA, that's IMANIUSA.com, and use code BADASS for, again, 25% off of your purchase. But you can also head to breastpumps.com/Imani and place an order with your insurance benefits. And today's sponsors and their promo codes can be found in our show notes under this episode at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com or wherever you're listening, really. Our show notes will also include further information about things we talk about in this episode, and also at badassbreastfeedingpodcast.com. You can find our breastfeeding resources, all of our other episodes, and information about scheduling your very own one-on-one online lactation consultation with Dianne.
Yeah. So this one article that I have here, it really is cool because it talks a lot about even just like evolutionary stuff, which I always think that that's like super interesting. And says, according to nutritional anthropologist Daniel W. Sellin, in the 2007, like I said, this is a little bit older of an article, edition of the Annual Review of Nutrition, breastfeeding beyond age 2 was typical in 75 to 83% of hunter-gatherer societies, with the average age at weaning approximately 30 months. Moreover, copious data now support the hypothesis that humans evolved to begin consuming foods besides mother's milk at approximately 6 months of age. And they also say that humans are the only primates that wean their infants before they can forage for themselves. So we're really the only ones that are like, figure it out, dude. This pattern was probably the norm for 200,000 years of human evolution and some 7 million years of non-human primate evolution. The radical change occurred in the late 1800s with the widespread relocation of rural populations to urban areas, resulting in lifestyle and socio-cultural changes that disrupted the normal breastfeeding pattern. So like there's been a lot, and it goes into like different, reasons why breastfeeding changed and, how things kind of evolved over the last, however many decades. But it really, really is interesting that, kind of looking across all the places in the world, how like evolutionary or how toxins and how environmental things like even, mercury and lead and things like that, how different it is everywhere, and how everybody still says like the breastfeeding is going to be the best thing for your baby, regardless of what your baby's being exposed to through your breast milk. And I don't know, like like I said, I never really thought about it that much. And nobody ever said to me, oh, there's, probably more, chemicals in your breast milk than there is because of the environment is so bad. It's so polluted and so bad right now. But when you think about it, it's like, okay, yes, the climate, we always a big thing right now with, global warming and pollution and the ozone and like all of that stuff, but you're getting exposed to that regularly anyway. So it's, pregnancy, you're exposed to it. You're not like, nobody's thinking about the toxins that you're ingesting while you're pregnant. Like nobody's thinking about that. Nobody's telling you, oh, you know what? Your body, when you're pregnant, you still are being exposed to the same toxins. Like you might not be cleaning with heavy cleaning things, cleaning materials and, stuff like that when you're pregnant because you're like, well, I don't want to inhale this. But the food you eat and, the places you go, it's there. So there's really no like getting around it necessarily. And then in your system, it does pass on. But it's not impacting these babies the way we think it is. It really isn't.
It's not a reason to stop nursing. And this is like how it comes down to like, it is the same conversation with alcohol and cigarettes, where it's like this is
one of them brings up alcohol in this too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These are things that are, with alcohol, of course, you can avoid alcohol if you want. But again, you don't have to. You don't have to. And for other things, it's impossible. You can't just go to the store and spend all this money on organic food and spend all this money on, I don't know, all this chemical-free, toxin-free stuff, which, by the way, this language is not regulated. Anybody can say it's natural or free of toxins. You're allowed to put that on any kind of label that you want. These companies can put it on. Those words are not regulated. And so this stuff is just around you. There's no way around it. And I remember, like, I went down that whole, I know this is like a big thing, of course it's a really big thing right now, is like being greener, being, organic and all of this, stuff. But I remember when I had Jack, and I started worrying about a lot of things. Worrying more. I was always a worrier. So, you find all these new things to worry about when you have a baby. And like, I did the same thing. Oh my God, we can't, I have to stop eating this. We have to stop eating that. We have to stop buying this kind of, I don't know, cleaner. We have to all this, and this panic about, how these things were going to be harming us. And I'll say through all of that, one of the things that I never thought about was this thing of like the toxins in the breast milk. Yeah. Like the environment is so toxic that, the breast milk is not safe for, consumption. And when I remember hearing that, I remember hearing it early on, and I was even then I was like, really? I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I don't know how I don't understand how formula is better. Because formula, of course, we talk about how formula is necessary and how formula, we do need it around, and I'm agreeing with that. We do. Formula is a necessity in our culture, but it is not a suitable replacement for breast milk because the breast milk is full of toxins,
right?
Because so is the formula.
Yeah, and this is like I did find the statement here that was in one of these articles. And it says, in some instances, commercial formula may be more serious source of heavy metals than human milk. And this is quoted, because breastfeeding is essential to a normal, healthy infant development. Avoiding breastfeeding and using cow's milk-based formulas is not a reasonable way to respond to the problem of environmental pollution and human milk contamination. And then he adds, and this is it's like a doctor or scientist. adds that the risk of excessive lead exposure for infants, whether breast or formula fed, is higher and affects longer lasting with mercury compared to mercury exposure. So it's like you're saying, like, breastfeeding is the natural way that you're supposed to feed your baby. Like, this is how it's supposed to be, right? We know that breast milk is the best thing for your baby. So saying, oh, but the air is polluted, so I'm not going to breastfeed, I'm going to give formula instead. That is not a good solution because it's not solving your problem at all. It could be making your problem worse, actually. So just kind of knowing that, like, okay, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, there is contaminants and you can cut back. There's some things you can control. Like they said, it's in, certain things that you eat and, whatever, but there's also certain things that you cannot control. So just knowing that you can control giving your baby breast milk and that is protective for them. That is very, very helpful for them. It is, helps their immune system to stay stronger and it helps reverse some of the impact of toxins. But toxins are something that, like, it's just always going to be there, I feel like.
Yeah, it's going to be there until we drive this planet into, nothingness. And I'm not saying that, like, oh, just deal with it. And there are a lot of things that need to happen, but a lot of this stuff it's not the individual's responsibility. Like, corporations need to be regulated. It's these billion-dollar corporations that are causing the majority of the problems on this planet. And whatever we go through and however we push through or make changes to try to save the planet, we need to do all of that while breastfeeding.
Mm-hmm.
It's never going to be the answer to stop breastfeeding and buy this thing from one of these corporations that's also harming the environment.
Right. Absolutely. And I know a lot of times people will and like I say, we got to put a lot of this stuff in perspective. People sometimes will get very concerned about medications and you have to weigh the benefits and the risks, right? You have to look at the benefits versus the risks. And it comes with, the toxins and the environmental stuff and pollution, but we're also talking about medications. And when people are really concerned about, like, should I take this medication? Should I not take this medication? But it really, like, you have to weigh the benefits versus the, benefits versus the negatives on these things. And your baby getting the breast milk is definitely a benefit. And if the benefits outweigh the risks, then that answers your question.
I mean, that's a good point with the medication, because certainly that is foreign and not, a natural occurrence in your body or your breast milk. But there's a ton of science on that. We've studied, Dr. Hale is the one who kind of led that movement of studying all of the medications and, finding out that through testing of the breast milk and all that most medications, the vast majority of medications, are not passing through breast milk in, harmful amounts, or they're not causing, this long-term harm like that we would fear, and that it is safe. And so, we have the science of the breast milk. We can use that as an example of, this is still, breastfeeding will always be, the preferred choice of feeding a baby for, health reasons.
Right.
And it's not going to be, you're not going to run into a situation where it's like, oh yeah, your breast milk. No, it's not safe.
Yeah. Like, it's just,
or formula is safer.
Yeah, that's not going to be a thing. We did an episode a little while back. I think Abby and I were more excited about that episode than most other people about the whole environmental, why breastfeeding is more more environmental friendly. Yeah, like why it's more environmentally friendly. And it was more about, like, we didn't talk about toxins out. Like, we didn't talk about it like that. It was more about, like, okay, the formation of formula, how that impacts our society as far as, like, the carbon footprint and how much energy is put into that, how much waste is involved. And that is, that's a real thing that we don't talk about at all. Like, nobody really talks about how much energy goes into creating formula, as opposed to, we don't see that with breast milk, obviously, because your body's making it. But this is, there are chemicals in all of it. This was really interesting too. I'm going to read this. So, for example, because lead is stored in the bones, breastfeeding mothers who maintain a good calcium intake and healthy bone metabolism during pregnancy are less likely to transfer lead to the infant. Like, isn't that amazing? It's just fascinating, really. Like, so there's, it's like, who even thinks to study this stuff? I don't even like.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, how do you figure that out?
How did that come up? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, how do you even figure that kind of stuff out? So there is really like, so basically the study that the study from 2022 and this article, with the studies and stuff in it from 2007, both of them say like, and this is how many years difference. There's, obviously there's more room for research and there's more room there. Like stuff is very, is so variable. But there is no reason to discontinue breastfeeding. That's what everything says. There's no reason to discontinue breastfeeding because breastfeeding is still more powerful and more protective than not breastfeeding. So, definitely, don't feel like that you can't still breastfeed because you are living in an area like that's very, like, I think probably like big cities, you're going to get more pollution and things like that. Like, just because you're like, well, I live in, this area of the country where there's a lot of smog and there's a lot of pollution, I shouldn't breastfeed. No, that's not. You should because of that. You should breastfeed because of that.
Yeah.
And I know this came up.
And that stuff is problematic. Like all of this shit is problematic. Like the pollution and all of this, obviously this climate stuff is a huge issue. Like life or death issue. But and we need a revolution. We need a revolution. Like a revolution absolutely needs to happen. As far as that, and as far as like creating kinder humans who actually care to lead this revolution. But this revolution will be breastfed.
Yeah.
It needs to be latched. The revolution will be latched.
So really the bottom, I know, there you go. Are we going to have a word? We didn't pick a word.
Revolution.
So
if you made it this far, our intention was to have a little like fun contest, which the whole time I was like, okay, I keep forgetting to call out a word, so I was going to forget it. But well, let's just do it now. And the word is revolution. That's our magic word of the day. And so this episode you will find, unless it's the middle of the night and I haven't done it yet, so give me some time to put it on Instagram. Find this environmental toxins episode on the Badass Breastfeeder at Instagram. You can also find it on the Badass Breastfeeder at Facebook. We'll do it there too. And comment with the word of the day, which is revolution. And Diane and I are going to go through and we'll pick some winners and we're going to send you some Badass Breastfeeding podcast stickers.
They're really cute.
Isn't that fun?
So fun.
So fun. We want to have fun with you guys because we know it's hard.
Yeah. So the bottom line with this, like Abby said, if you're still listening, thank you. But really the bottom line here is that we don't want you to become like over worried or over anxious about like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Am I impacting my breast milk and everything I eat is causing, more toxins in every place I go and, all that stuff. It's just live your life. Live your life. Yeah. Just live your life.
When you hear this crap, when you hear stuff like this, like especially people trying to sell you shit or like people trying to tell you like, oh, that's dangerous because of toxins. And, that's like such a buzzword lately.
Yeah.
Just let it go. There is nothing to that. Just let it go. There's nothing you need to change.
Oh, you know what I was thinking too while you were talking about it? Like when you were talking about like how, that is a buzzword now with, you can buy stuff with no toxins and that's not really a regulated thing. I kind of feel like that about like organic because we know like, especially people be like, well, no, I use organic formula, so it's okay. It's like, that really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of stuff. There's a lot
of wiggle room with that organic.
There
label.
is, and there is a an Instagram page that is called, I think it's called Cowl. Let
That
me
would
look
be
it up
cool if we
because
could-
this is where
yeah.
you can, there is this person, shoot, I'm trying to find it. There is this person who does a lot of research and here it is. I mean, she focuses a lot on like beauty products, but I think that she does a whole bunch of other stuff. But so she goes into a lot of research about like, like the word organic and what that means. And as far as cleanliness. And you know what? I think we even did when we were working with Original Sprout, I did a live with them. I think it was last year when we first started working with them. And I was talking to the person there. They were educating us on the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, where you can go there and you can put in your beauty products, and it'll give you a score. Like if the 1 is safest, 4 or 5, I think is the highest, where they have like inside of their, inside your product, they will identify like, chemicals that are linked to cancer and stuff like that. Well, Original Sprout was educating about kind of the politics around the Environmental Working Group and how difficult it is to get that on your label, and how it's very, there's some questionable stuff going on there. And I mean, the same thing goes on with organic, because organic products, they use pesticides too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not government, or there's not like the regulated pesticides.
Right.
And so there's a lot of stuff that's really being kind of examined about this right now. And I'm not saying, I mean, whatever, you live your life. But when we talk about, these, the regulation of things, remember, we're talking about the US government. And that's political, and a lot of stuff goes into that. And it's the same thing with formula. I mean, like we talked about, we talk about the formula regulation and information that comes out from formula companies. And we know that this stuff is not necessarily reliable. And so if you want to follow this account on Instagram, it is the E Cowl. I'm not sure if that's her name or something, but it's TheECOWELL. And she just talks about the
really
safety
interesting
of beauty products and all that. Yeah.
One of the
just let it go.
Yeah, let it go. One of these articles that I'm talking about today, one of them does mention like seeing more lead with people that wear lipstick. And I was just, and I know that makeup products do have, chemicals and stuff like that, but I didn't think about it until like that moment. And it was just like, oh, that is really, of course, when I was breastfeeding my kids, I was like a hot mess, and lipstick was the furthest thing from my mind. But I do know people who, you go to work
lipstick
and you
is my favorite
put your
thing,
face on,
and they can, yes, like
and your kids are fine, right? Like
yes, and I would be interested in to know, more information about that, and what more research and what this woman says about that. What other, because one research study. Oops, I scroll down and there's one of her posts has a thing of lipstick on it.
But it probably, like you said, depends. I'm sure some companies have more chemicals than others.
It depends on that, and who, there's a whole bunch of things. So it's not, as you can tell, it's not as simple as it's presented, and there's a lot of things to question. And I always say, question everything. Just question everything.
But the thing you don't have to question is whether or not your milk is okay, because it is.
Yes. The only thing in the world you don't have to question is breastfeeding your child.
Yeah.
That's all. Just do it. Know that you're doing the right thing. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you. See ya. Bye.